One of the harder places to be in any relationship is when your partner has promised to make a change, a needed change in your eyes, and yet you're not seeing substantial progress that direction. And so you're left waiting, you're left wondering, how long should I wait for this promised change? So obviously I can't give you an answer. I can't give you some number and say at this point and no more, should you wait and at that juncture kick him out and move on with your life. I can't tell you that. I cannot make that decision for you. But what I can do is actually give you some questions to ask yourself, some things to think about if you're in that situation. So the first is to be very clear about who asked for this change. Was this something that they brought up on their own, something that they're wanting to do? Or is it something that maybe they feel pressured into doing, or maybe you brought up for them? You can probably already see the difference there. If they are the ones who initiated that conversation, if they are the ones that said, hey, this is something that I want to do, that I feel like I need to do, personally, I'd be more patient with that, because that says that at least they've taken that first step, that first acknowledgement. And that is often the hardest part when it comes to change. But instead, if it's something that you brought up and they just said, okay, but they're not making any strides that direction, they're probably not ready yet. And so maybe then you really have to think about, do you want to continue to wait? You also have to be very clear with yourself. Are you hung up on their potential? We see it in everybody. We see who they can be, and sometimes we get so focused on that we forget to see who they are. But they're not their potential. They are that person that is in front of you right now, today. Are you in love with that person? If they never make these changes, are you okay with that? Or are you more in love with their potential, with this image that you have of them, than who they actually are? That's a really hard place for both people to be in. I wrote a blog post about it once that was a little tongue-in-cheek, but it was, from the perspective of a caterpillar whose partner was constantly berating them for not flying. If you loved me, you would learn to fly. And the caterpillar was like, I'm trying to. I want to make you happy. I want to do this thing. But of course, the caterpillar can't force that before it's ready. And so they just were feeling less than every time their partner berated them, because they couldn't be what their partner wanted them to be. And that can be a really uncomfortable thing to admit to yourself, that you're wanting something from your partner that maybe they can't give you. We easily can fall for words, especially when somebody's good at expressing what we want to hear. But you need to look for actions. Is your partner simply talking the talk, or are they actually doing things to move in that direction? Now, maybe they are making steps, but you're frustrated because it's not going as fast as you would like, or maybe as smoothly as you would like. For me, my perspective is, as long as I'm seeing progress, I'll be patient, because I know that change is hard. Change is really hard, and it's rarely linear. There will be setbacks, sometimes big ones, sometimes multiple ones in a row. But if their intention and their energy is still focused on learning and becoming better, that's worth a lot. Except that maybe you need to step back, or perhaps even step out, with the hope of one day being able to step back in. Sometimes we can't be a part of that change. Sometimes we need to let them make that change or not on their own, and say, hey, if you make that change, I'm here. But I can't have things the way that they currently are. At the same time, be realistic about the limitations of change. They may be able to alter some of their habits or their behaviors, but they're not going to become a completely different person. When you're frustrated with them, and you will be frustrated with them while you're waiting for change, try altering your response. After all, that's the piece that you can control. And when you're frustrated, even when you don't overtly say anything, they can sense it. And often, well, sometimes even as adults, we behave kind of like teenagers. And so when we know that somebody wants us to do something, sometimes we dig in our heels and do the exact opposite. So try altering your approach. You may just be surprised at what happens. Now, if addiction is part of the story, you're in for a long road. You're in for a hard road. Addicts are very skilled at keeping us going with just enough breadcrumbs, just enough promises and hope to keep us going. So if that's part of the story, I really recommend that you do some reading on it or get some help. Al-Anon is a great support group for the partners of addicts. But the more that you understand, the better off you'll be. And then finally, attend to yourself. I know that you're waiting on them to make these changes, but that doesn't mean that you need to wait to live.